I'm really excited. I'm about to head over to interview Courtney Ellsbury for my first Living a Legacy interview. All right, so I'm Leslie Prawley-Keene, and I'm here with Courtney Ellsbury, who is a junior at Northeast Hamilton in Blairsburg, Iowa, and she is actually an author, a published author. So I wanted to have my first Living Your Legacy interview be with Courtney because she is doing some amazing work. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started writing in general, and then how you got moving into the actually writing novels?
In general, I've been writing since I was like 5 or 6, and I don't know how that started. I just know that a long time ago I found my little itty-bitty books about unicorns talking to mice and stuff.
Nice.
And that was probably my first book. Recently, the novels started because when I was in 10th grade, my social studies teacher, which would have been Mr. Vorey at that point, thought I was doing well enough that I could be outside of class at times, so he asked if there was anything else I wanted to learn about, which happened to be writing, and he talked to Mrs. Lexell and had her allow me to sit in her other classes when I was supposed to be in his class so that I could learn about writing, and then she set me up with NaNoWriMo that year.
And what's NaNoWriMo?
National Novel Writing Month.
Got it. So you start writing and basically just set a goal, and you ended up with something you really liked?
Well, personally, I didn't like it because I'm really critical. But the main thing was with NaNoWriMo, the November version, you have to meet the 50,000 word goal. So I just kind of kept adding scenes to make it to that goal. But I didn't like it at first. I really didn't like it, but I had put an entire month worth of time into it, so I kept it. The original plan was just to trash it and forget about it after Nano. But I started putting it through layers of editing because Mrs. Lexell told me to give it to her to edit. So I kind of rolled with that first and then put it through my own layers of editing afterwards.
How much editing would you say you did before with the first one?
With the first one was probably 4 to 5 layers of editing, but I know there's still a ton of mistakes in it. But I was running out of time because through Nano there was an offer for CreateSpace in which you could get 2 free copies of your book, but to do so you had to self-publish through them. But there was a deadline date.
Okay.
So I had to just kind of hurry up and do it. So I totally need to go back through and re-edit that book another like 6 times.
So is that offer what really got you to jump in and publish that first time?
That is the only reason I ever self-published.
Okay. That's awesome. That's okay. Because you took that first leap, right? So you decided to do this whole process again, and more than once.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I've done it 2 more times, completely. The next one would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, which was a detective book that I did in July for Camp NaNoWriMo. And that one was published, I'd like to say, October-ish. Then in November, I did NaNoWriMo again of 2014. And I did 3 books that time around. 1 through actual NaNoWriMo, 1 through the Young Writers Program of NaNoWriMo, which you can set your own word goal for. And then 1 just I was keeping track of on a chart on my own time.
So do you have more books in progress right now?
Yeah. I had 2 detective books finished for my detective series, and I didn't like the way they turned out, so I trashed both of them.
Oh my.
Yeah, the one was over 65,000 words, so that's the one I'm currently rewriting. I'm still kind of in the progress of a zombie one, but I get really bored with it really easily because I don't know if I want to do before the apocalypse or after or during or how I want to do it.
So, but how did the stories come to you? Like, couldn't you have just added more, or was it just not shaping up the way you wanted it to?
Normally I have a rough idea of how I want it to go based on different things that have happened. I mean, sometimes I get ideas from dreams. Video games. That's a most common one. Other books, TV shows, movies, but I like to put my own spin on them.
Okay.
And then another one is I enjoy walking around the house and I pick like a random word and I make a sentence out of it and then I keep talking back and forth like I'm two different characters and that typically starts a book.
That's really fascinating. So do you like talk to yourself around your house?
Oh yeah, all the time.
So your family's like, oh, Courtney's just in the process again.
Yeah.
Very cool. About how long are your books right now?
Right now they're roughly 50,000 words each.
Which, how many pages is that? You're speaking a different language than I am.
Roughly it's going to average from about 100 to 200.
Okay.
Roughly.
So a pretty standard young adult novel.
Yeah.
In that realm. What would you say has been the hardest part of this journey?
The hardest part would probably be the whole acceptance factor because I have a lot of issues with worrying about rejection and worrying about people not accepting the work I've put into something. I don't want to worry about my manuscript sitting on an editor's desk for years to come without them ever looking at it because that's typically how that kind of thing goes
Right.
for quite a long time. So I think my biggest deal is every time I put out a new book, I sit nervously waiting for someone to tell me what they thought of it. So I'm like on edge until I know what someone thought of it.
That can be really difficult, pouring your heart and soul into something and then waiting for that feedback.
Yeah.
So do you think down the road, finding a, I don't know, like a true publisher, a true editor is an option for you to keep pushing yourself? Or do you think self-publishing is really the way that you want to keep going?
I think for now, self-publishing is definitely the way I want to go. When I start doing research on that and figuring out how to get into it, because I know one of the easiest ways is to find an agent so they can send it to editors, then I would try it, but I would need to research to figure out how to find who at that time.
Okay. So one of the things that I saw that you had done is create a YouTube channel where you could talk about your writing or answer questions that other people might have. What made you decide to do something like that?
That month would have been the second NaNoWriMo for me, and I know that the first one I did, I really wished I had had someone that I could ask questions to because it was my first big project that I was writing. So I started it that November as hoping I could help kids or young adults that were doing NaNoWriMo the first time around.
But that's not your only YouTube channel.
Right.
What inspired you to start your multiple YouTube channels?
The first one that I ever started was my crafting channel, and it was because there was this other YouTube crafter that was really cool, and I was a big fan, and I kind of nerded out a little bit and had to start my own. But I also am a huge collector of dolls, and I wanted to start making my own doll houses because most of them don't have accessories anyway. And my gaming channel was started because for a while I was a huge fan of the big gamers on YouTube because that is a huge thing on YouTube right now. A lot of people are watching them. So I started one. But the main thing with all of my channels is because we went one-to-one with iPads, and that's what I record with.
Okay.
So it gave me a way to get out into the world with the one-to-one.
That can be a really scary step for some people, though. What was it that, like, this is what I'm going to do, I need to put it out there?
And it kind of broke the shyness factor on YouTube for me.
That's really interesting. So have you seen that transfer over into real life?
No.
Not yet?
No. I still don't like talking to people I've never met before.
Good thing you've met me before.
I know.
So I appreciate you doing this. So I'm just really interested, though. Huh. So do you feel like you have two separate lives? Like you're in real life and your public persona in social media?
Yeah. I'm a completely different person in... Like, I have 3. I'm a completely different person in real life, in my books, and on social media.
So what is it about that organization that...
Well, I think it's the knowing that not everyone I know in real life reads my books. Not everyone that reads my books knows me in real life, and the same goes for my YouTube channels. Those worlds cross over a little bit. Like, some people know about all 3, some of them don't. But not everybody from one world knows the other. So it helps me just keep separate because they all don't know every side of me.
Okay. So you think about your audience more specifically and can tailor to them maybe?
Yeah.
So biggest highlight throughout this whole process. You're sharing on YouTube, you're publishing your novels, you have people who buy them. What's been the greatest, like, I didn't even expect this could happen highlight for you?
Each section has their own highlight, but with my YouTube channel, I know when I get feedback telling me that people like my videos, like I made them laugh today, they were having a hard day, I made them smile. That kind of thing is huge for me because I'd never see myself as someone that can make someone else happy in a day. And then with my books, I take great pleasure when people get attached to the characters. Like more recently, I had someone tell me that they cried like 2 or 3 times reading one of my books.
Oh.
And I smiled and I laughed when they told me because I was like, I never expected anyone to actually be that emotionally involved in my book. I never expected someone to be able to have that attachment, but the feedback that they were able to was a huge breakthrough for me.
That's incredible. That has to be like the best feeling though, like people are invested in your work. That being said, what sort of message or life lessons do you have that you could share with someone who wanted to go down a similar path?
Never take failure as an ending point because failure is just the first attempt in learning. And if you accept failure and then you say that's it, you're not going to be able to move on.
That's really good advice. That's something that we talk about in my line of work a lot and how we can learn from that failure. So it's great to hear that from another perspective. All right, and so here's the big final question. You're living your legacy, you know, someday down the road, whether it is hundreds of thousands of fans who are reading your work or whether it is your grandchildren or family, they're going to reflect back and go, wow, what a life Courtney lived. You're living that right now. It's amazing. You're sharing that with people via different channels. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now, though?
10 years from now, this has always been a complicated question for me because I'm not a big future planner. But I know for sure that I still plan on living in the country because it's really relaxing and it really helps me set my books.
Okay.
That the whole being able to go outside, sit in the calm, listen to the birds, listen to the wind blow through the trees, it really helps with the descriptions of my books because that's where my characters are most of the time. But if I can't live in the country, my other big plan is hopefully California because I love the warmth, but also because my big detective series is set in California. And it would be amazing to actually have big descriptive details to go into those books instead of just looking at pictures and hoping that it's right. But otherwise, I don't have a lot of big plans for 10 years in the future.
Writing is in the future, though.
Oh, yeah. Always will be.
Love it. Maybe I lied. It wasn't my last question. As a passion or as a career, both, you don't know?
Hopefully both. One of the big things I tell people is that I plan on writing when I have free time, but I don't plan on it being the only thing that supports my income. Like, I plan on having to have another job, but writing will definitely be a big part of it.
Is there anything I didn't touch on that you feel like people might want to know?
I also have a blog where I do tips about writing. For instance, the trashing of my most recent book. And talking about how to work through that and how to rework it into a new book. I've done stuff about manuscripting, writing in general, and then I'm also going to have a page where I talk about my newest progress on all my books, but most of my big stuff so far has just been tips on how to work through like writer's block and whatnot.
That was a part I didn't even know about, so that's really exciting. Make sure you check out Courtney's channels and follow the amazing work that she continues to do. A junior in high school, Courtney has already published 3 novels. What an amazing story and an inspiring young woman who is using writing to follow her passion and also share that with others via her social media channels. I hope you'll join us next time to learn more about kids who are living their legacy.